Hey there, welcome to Cloud and Sec. In this video, I want to talk about the news that happened in October. There has been a lot of data security incidents, so I'm going to cover some of those so that we can learn how to mitigate some of the risks that were based on those incidents, but also have a look at news on frameworks and some standards that are relevant to ours in our industries and daily job. I will apologize if you can hear any background noise with birds. It seems like they're having a blast today. But let's dive into the news. Okay, let's start off by talking about where all the information is coming from, essentially my blog. So have a look at this page here. Link is in the description. This is for all the sources of everything I'm showing to you, but also what I'm referencing as well. So highly recommend you have a look at my report. If you're a subscriber for Medium, you can have a play and boom, that's it. All good. Before I move on, I must advise on background noise here. There are fireworks going on. Guy Fawkes, go figure, right? So that's mostly it. But starting off with people-related news, a lot of data breaches, a lot of issues here in terms of incidents. First one of them being around Sony. At the end of the prior month, we had some rumors about Sony have been hacked, and at the beginning of October that was confirmed. Sony has made it public that about 6,800 of its current and former employees' data had been leaked given a particular incident. The incident itself happened due to a file sending software from a company called MoveIt. That's the MoveIt transfer platform. There was a vulnerability in that platform. Sony was only advised of that vulnerability on the 31st of May, according to reports. Then Sony started investigating the potential incident and found the origin of its data breach that actually happened before the 31st of May. That actually happened on the 28th of May. So it's a very important situation where the software provider provided the news related to vulnerability later than it was being exploited in the wild. With that, about 7,000 of employees of Sony had some of their information leaked. So that is very unfortunate for the employees, but according to Sony's statement, there was no impact to their operations from an organization standpoint, and what the impact was in terms of data that was stolen was about 3 gigs, so a little more than 3 gigs of data that has leaked from those servers. So that was the impact there for Sony. Next up, talking about a genetic kind of organization, right? So 23andMe has been found itself in the news, in the headlines, because of millions of its users that found on Breach Forum, for example, right, and other forums. So those user data, so people's names, people's year of birth, but also what this business adds up to this potential file of their users is, of course, the genetic data. And what each of these records also may include is what they describe as generic genetic description, or description of genetic data. So this could have leaked as well. The complexity of this entire incident, though, is that the hack apparently, or the organization impacted here is not disclosing an actual hack. They're not saying they have been hacked. Rather, according to reports here by TechCrunch, they're actually stating that this seems to be a password spray kind of attack, where users reused passwords found on the internet were used to access their users' own information, and thus allowing for data extraction to be done that way. To me, it doesn't seem like that would scale well to millions of records or millions of users being accessed that way, but there you go. That's the current information there for all of us. Next up, Okta. Okta has been on the headlines for some bad reasons for the last few months. Every vendor suffers that. Is open to suffer that's all good. What happened in this particular report here is that Okta Okta utilizes a service by a healthcare provider, which finds plans for its employees. That healthcare provider then stores Okta's employees' data itself, and then that provider has been breached, and so it caused Okta's employees' data to have been breached there. So that's the third-party vendor has been breached, and that impacted about 5,000 Okta employees' sensitive data there. Okay, next up, I want to talk about process-related news, right? So frameworks, standards, and there has been quite a lot this month. So NIST SP 800-82 received a new revision here. So this is the guide to OT security, operational technology, and this guide is packed with overview of OT security. So if you don't know much about this sort of domain, I highly recommend you have a read of this document. But also, if you need to understand architectures, common architectures for this domain, I highly recommend you read it. The document also touches on related threats and how to mitigate these threats with control. So that's really helpful for that perspective, right? So I highly recommend you have a look at this particular special publication from NIST. Next up, there is another NIST publication. Next up is another NIST SP publication or special publication 800-92R1. This is an initial public draft, and it's all about log management and how to plan log management properly. So there's a raft of challenges that are connected to log management architecture, including what sort of log sources to send your data to or send data from, but also what are the use cases that you should look at from a log management perspective to cybersecurity. And the benefit, or one of the things that this document does touch on and covers, is exactly some of these subjects, and it'll also touch on the architecture side of things as well. So I highly recommend you have a look at that if you want to understand more about how to plan your cybersecurity log management properly. Next up, CISO. So the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency works in conjunction with the National Security Agency, NSA, and together they created this working group called ESF. This is the Enduring Security Framework working panel, and that working panel aims to create essentially guidance to address risks related to national security threat in the US. So great goal, by the way, right? This group has created essentially this identity access management recommended best practices for administrators. It's a great document there if you are working with these technologies to help you address technology gaps, but also help you understand how to overcome the limitation or issues to deploy MFA and SSO technologies. So everything encompassing identity and access management. Highly recommend you have a look at it. I skimmed through the document and I saw this particular page right here. This is page 3 of the document, and it touches on details on what a golden SAML attack is. So this was used in the SolarWinds compromise attacks 2020, years ago, I remember that. And highly recommend you have a look at this document. So much like this detailed kind of document here, it provides a lot more interesting information down below, so highly recommend you have a look at that. Next up, Microsoft Digital Defense Report. This was released at the beginning of October, and this is the version of 2023. This covers 1 year worth of frontline data from Microsoft's and customers, from what Microsoft has seen out there in the entire industry. So it's quite a thorough and broad report. It's hundreds of pages long, and it's great to have an overview of the entire threat landscape there. The timeline that it covers is from July 2022 all the way to June 2023. Okay, and some of the highlights here is the massive amount of data that Microsoft has synthesized. As you can see here, 65 trillion data, or signals is what we call. So signals are anything related to a connection attempt or something trying to get into your infrastructure, right? Many of which here can be related to attacks related to identity. And these numbers related to identity attacks are always on the rise. The report also corroborates and reiterates this there. And what I find it interesting as well is the wide scope that Microsoft cybersecurity team is actually working with at the moment, tracking more than 300 threat actors there. So quite a very broad number of threat actors being tracked by Microsoft security team. And so if you want to learn more, you can download the report and have a look at that yourself. Highly recommend you do so. So now moving into the technology related information, starting with the Gartner artificial intelligence hype cycle for 2023. This report here has been released in August, but I'm bringing it over now because I do find it quite relevant from a technology perspective to understand what are the up and coming AI related technologies that we as cybersecurity folks should be prepared to secure, but also prepared to maintain in our environment. So have a look at this hype cycle there. Might be important if you're talking to management, if you're talking about what's next in your environment. It's also interesting to see how Gartner foresees and thinks about some popular technologies such as generative AI. So according to them, generative AI is actually the peak of inflated expectations. So I would agree actually. So everyone's thinking a lot about Gen AI and what it can do. A lot of organizations are also developing internal applications with that, but also providers providing their own take on that, including Microsoft with its many co-pilots offer. So absolutely agree with that. But then we see all the other technologies related to AI that Gartner sees. So good document here for a quick perusal, a quick understanding of what's coming next from that domain. Last up, Forrester Wave for Endpoint Security for Q4 2023. This is a report by Forrester looking at the 13 providers related to endpoint security that matter most. So this report is important to reiterate that this report is actually looking at EPP, right? Endpoint protection platforms, not EDRs, not endpoint detection response. So that's quite interesting here to see what the vendors are for these technologies here. But endpoint security customers are always looking for providers that go beyond that, and that of course will have EDR or XDR technologies as well. So keep that in mind, but the Forrester report is quite helpful to help us see how the cybersecurity industry is portraying itself in terms of technology, in terms of offerings as well. And of course, amongst the leaders, we're happy to see here Microsoft, Trend Micro, CrowdStrike, Bitdefender, right? So all the big names industry are, of course, have strong offerings according to Forrester, which is quite good to see there. And of course, for my benefit and for yours, what I do like most about it is this very detailed report here by Forrester, which touches on an evaluation from 1 to 5 for many different offerings here. So quite thorough report from Forrester. Okay, so I hope you found that useful. If you did, make sure you subscribe and make sure you leave a like. I know it's been a little noisier than usual today, but it's November. People are starting to get excited with the end of the year. People are celebrating. Guy Fawkes over here, so it's nuts, right? So apologies for any background noise with fireworks as well. Anyway, thank you for the time. I do find all of this piece of news very interesting and relevant for my customer conversations, and I hope you do too. And if you do so, yeah, please leave a like and subscribe. Otherwise, enjoy yourselves. Cheers, bye.